Good afternoon, and welcome to True Crime Mysteries. If you're new to the channel, hello and welcome, and for those of you returning, welcome back. Today, we will be discussing 3 vacation cold cases that still remain a mystery. But first, I want to take a second to remind you to subscribe if you have not already, and click the like button. If you've done all that, don't forget to turn on notifications. This helps the channel immensely, and it doesn't cost a thing. But first, a huge thank you to our video sponsor NordVPN, but more on that later. Let's get into it. But with that being said, let's get into it. Number 1. Nicole Vino. On March 31st, 2007, 32-year-old Jacqueline Nicole Vino, who is most commonly known as Nicole, left her hotel in Hama, Syria to do some sightseeing. Nicole was on her final month of a 6-month solo backpacking trip. Her travels on this particular trip had taken her from West Africa and throughout the Middle East. Syria had meant to be a quick stop on her way to Turkey. That morning, she had asked a hotel desk clerk for directions to a sightseeing destination called the Beehive Houses, as well as a nearby castle. She was given the directions and then she left for the morning. After she left the hotel, she wasn't seen again. It didn't seem as though Nicole made it to her destination, as she didn't check into the guest logbooks. Locals also didn't remember seeing her, and as a Western woman in an area that wasn't a vastly popular tourist destination who also wore her hair uncovered, she would have stood out. Her mother first became concerned when Nicole failed to answer her email from Easter. It was very unlike her to go several weeks without any communication. On April 19th, her family contacted the Canadian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and it was then that they discovered that Nicole had never made it to Turkey. When they found the hotel she had last stayed in, the hotel casually informed them that Nicole's belongings were still in the hotel. There had been no evidence to suggest that Nicole had intended to go on an outing longer than the day trip she had planned. Her belongings that were recovered from the hotel included her journals, clothing, and memory cards for her camera. According to Nicole's brother, in 2007, Syria was considered very safe for women to travel in, especially Canadians. He and other tourists described locals as being very kind and respectful to travelers. This was before the wars and civil unrest that Syria is experiencing today. Nicole was also an experienced traveler. She loved history and architecture. She had been traveling alone to remote regions of the world for over 10 years. In August 2007, the family was given hope of recovering Nicole when they received an email from 2 Syrian men demanding ransom money in exchange for releasing Nicole. The men were arrested in Spain, and it was discovered that they had been trying to exploit the family for money and weren't involved in Nicole's disappearance. Only a month prior, Nicole's family had all been in Syria distributing flyers with Nicole's information on it, which had also included the reward money. The men had likely gotten the specifics from that flyer, and they were later charged with extortion and jailed.
Catherine Moret, you are coming from Canada, and you are the mother of Nicole Vino, who's been missing for over 1 year. Yes. I'm afraid I'll sound a little bit naive, maybe if I ask you why you are here after 1 year of her missing.
Nicole went missing in Hama, and that's the last place we saw her, and until we find her, we'll keep coming back to look for her. So
Still hopeful.
We're still hopeful until we have proof to the contrary. We need to find Nicole, and we need to bring her home.
What did you do for all this time?
In the past year or
Yes.
during?
Yes.
We've been to Syria several times. My son has been here. Her fiance Gary has been here a couple of times. We were here last year. We have been checking out any lead that has come. We haven't reward offered, and any lead that has come, we've had the police investigating it. We have been, how would you put it, working through talking to anyone else who might have seen her, all the other guests at the hotel where she was staying in Hama. and we have through the internet been able to get in contact with most of them. They've helped in placing her there. You know, one of the American guests saw her on the Friday night, so we know she was at the hotel on the Friday night. We've had Microsoft with Hotmail help us with her internet and say that she had used her email later on the Friday night. So we are trying to place her comings and goings so that we just know where she was last seen.
Mm-hmm. Gary, you're her fiancé, and now this is the second time maybe in Syria. Mm.
This is my third trip here, actually, my third trip. Yeah. And we've, like Catherine says, you know, we'll keep coming to Syria until we find her, till we find resolution. We work very closely with the Canadian Embassy here in Damascus, with the Syrian government, Syrian police, and the local community to try to piece together the events leading up to her disappearance to try to figure out what might have happened with her.
What kind of efforts did the Syrian authorities exert?
Well, they've placed it, you know, very high priority. Every level of government, local police as well as the national police have assisted us in trying to follow up leads. The embassy has supplied us with some leads. People had called the embassy with you know, bits of information, and the Syrian police have followed them up, trying to find somebody that has seen her. So far, we haven't had very many, you know, fruitful outcomes, but all the people in Syria seem to want to find her. It is definitely the intention of the government and Syrian police to find her, for sure.
You yourself have had your own way of tracing her, or any clue about her? You know, what did you do?
Well, I spent a lot of time in Hama. I've canvassed the neighborhoods where she stayed, and I've canvassed all the sites that she may have gone to see, Khazar bin Wardan, up near El Hamra, Sarouj, places like that. I've talked to local officials in all those small communities. I've handed out thousands of leaflets and pamphlets, posters to the community, trying to find information, trying to keep the story of her, you know, alive in the country, so that if somebody knows something, one day they might come forward and tell us about it, and to help us.
Nicole is interested maybe in the archaeological sites. Maybe she will visit some places. And maybe my friend Daniel told me that not necessarily she would be in the neighborhood of Hama, you know, maybe moved to Ebla in Idlib or any other place, you know. So the focus always on Hama, is it?
Primarily on Hama and the surrounding area, but it's true. Nicole, she likes history and art. She's interested in archaeological sites and that, and she would travel around to see those things. But her last known whereabouts was Hama, and based on the stuff that she took with her on the trip and what she left in her hotel room, she would only have gone for the day. So it would be in the vicinity of Hama, not too far away, where she would have intended to go to that day. Nicole likes to travel, she likes people and to see things, and she certainly, she's a caring, honest person, and she would just be out to take photographs and to experience Syria, meet the people, and something horrible has happened and she has not returned, and we just don't know what it is.
Okay.
Nicole was last seen wearing a white long-sleeve shirt with a red t-shirt layered on top, khaki pants, gray and black New Balance sneakers, and a blue backpack. Her family is still offering a $45,000 reward for any information leading to Nicole. Number 2. Charles and Catherine Romer. Charles and Catherine Romer were returning from their vacation home in Miami, Florida on April 8, 1980. They had decided to rest for the night in Brunswick, Georgia. Charles, who was 73, and his wife Catherine, 75, checked into a motel, dropped off their bags, and went for dinner. Charles was a retired oil executive, and he and Catherine made the trip from Scarsdale, New York to Miami every year. They were last seen in their black 1978 Lincoln Continental. A patrol officer remembered seeing the vehicle in a car park near a cluster of restaurants. The couple had planned on being back in New York by April 10th, The hotel called police on April 11th when they went in to clean the room and noted it was virtually untouched, other than the belongings left behind. A massive search was undertaken, but no trace of the couple or their vehicle were ever found. The couple's sons had hired a private investigator, and 2 theories came from their collective search. Either the couple were victims of a robbery and foul play, or they ran off the road and into the swamp. 5 years after they disappeared, Charles was declared dead and his $1.2 million estate was left to their sons, Richard and Charles Jr. Their sons continue to fund searches for their parents, hopeful that one day they can have answers. Bringing me to our sponsor, NordVPN. A VPN is a virtual private network. Much like firewalls protect your computer from attacks, VPNs protect your data online. It protects your data both at home and when on the go when you access public Wi-Fi like at Starbucks or hotels. NordVPN is an easy and affordable way to secure your time on the internet. One of my favorite features of NordVPN is actually its security tools such as NordPass, a password manager that stores all of your passwords securely. A VPN also allows you to bypass country restrictions. Did you know that different countries have different offerings on Netflix? I live in Canada and I use my VPN to access a totally different library on the US Netflix. NordVPN has thousands of servers in over 60 countries. When you use my code truecrimemysteries at checkout, you will get 68% off of a 2-year plan, plus a bonus month free and a surprise gift. It also has a 30-day money-back guarantee. NordVPN is my preferred VPN service, and it helps keep me and my data safe. Thank you, NordVPN, for sponsoring this video. Number 3. Lisanne Froon and Chris Cremers. This story was requested by a loyal subscriber, Rejected Driftwood. Thank you for the suggestion. And if you'd like to suggest a particular case, just a reminder that in the comment section isn't the best place as it does get a little lost. You can always email me, which is in my description box, and send it over there, and I will do my best to try and include them in these videos. This story was quite a challenge as there aren't a lot of reliable sources that were reported in English in this case. It is mostly theories, conspiracies, and opinions, which is not the type of research I normally include in my videos. I did my best to try and use the most consistent sources to report on this as accurately as possible. In March 2014, 2 Dutch women went missing while hiking in Panama. Lisanne Froon and Chris Cremers were friends and roommates from the Netherlands. Lisanne was 22 and Chris was 21. They both grew up in Amersfoort, and while they had different passions academically, they shared a love of travel and adventure. The girls had moved in together, sharing a dorm, and they both worked at the same cafe. They were saving up for 6 months for a trip to Panama that they planned together. The trip was to be a graduation celebration as Froon had recently graduated with a degree in applied sciences in September of the year prior. They had planned to combine the vacation with humanitarian efforts while also practicing their Spanish. They had arrived in Panama on the 15th of March. It was planned to be a 6-week vacation. 4 of those weeks were to be spent living with the host family while they worked as volunteers in the city of Boquete. On the 29th of March, they arrived at the home of their host family, but they were told their jobs were to start in a week. They decided to take advantage of the time that they had to explore the area that they were in. Boquete is a small mountain village in Panama. It is full of beautiful, lush mountainscapes, making it a popular destination for both locals and tourists. Its main economy is agriculture, and Boquete is the producer of some of the world's finest coffee beans. It is also a popular destination for North Americans to retire. 14% of its inhabitants are foreigners. It is a more comfortable climate than the rest of the country, has excellent drinking water, clean air, and offers a quiet and peaceful environment with a low cost of living. On April 1st, the girls went out for a hike. They took with them a dog from the village and set out. They had posted on Facebook about going to explore the area, as well as meeting up with some fellow Dutch travelers for brunch that morning. Once they set out on their hike, they stopped posting on social media. The owners of the dog were alarmed when later that evening the dog returned, but there was no sign of the two women. But it wasn't until April 3rd that the authorities began a search. Local residents also helped search for the girls, but there was no sign of them. By the 6th of April, the parents of Froon and Cremers arrived in Panama, along with specialized professionals, search dogs, and detectives from the Netherlands. They searched for 10 days, and the parents were also offering a $30,000 reward, but with no evidence to be found, the case quickly went cold. 10 weeks passed before they got their first piece of evidence. A local recovered a backpack, and it was determined to have belonged to Lisanne. It was dry, in good condition, and the woman who found it hadn't been sure when the bag had appeared, but she was certain it hadn't been there long. The backpack contained 2 pairs of sunglasses, $83 in American, Lisanne's passport, a water bottle, a camera, 2 bras, and 2 cell phones. One cell phone was Lisanne's, and the other was Chris's. The bras also matched photographs from what the girls were wearing that day. The bag wasn't anything fancy, it wasn't even waterproof. It wouldn't have stayed dry in a jungle for 10 days unprotected. The belongings were also neatly packed inside, and everything was in excellent condition. Authorities were able to unlock both cell phones, and along with photos from the camera, they attempted to piece together a timeline. The photos begin with the girls having a good time on their hike. It appears that they got to the Pianista summit around 1 to 2 p.m. It was discovered that they had researched this trail. Most tourists turned around at the lookout point, but onwards there's a small waterfall. However, the trail to it is much more treacherous hike, and it isn't recommended to take without a guide. It wouldn't have been suitable for anyone not prepared or experienced in hiking in the wilderness. Photos show that the women had carried on instead of turning around at the lookout point. Had they turned around at the summit, they would have been back in Boquete by 3 or 4 p.m., giving them plenty of time before sundown. Sundown occurred at 7 p.m., meaning they would have had to turn around at the latest by 3. Lisanne was known to have asthma and had complained to her host family of coughing and shortness of breath. Her asthma, paired with the change of altitude, not having a cell phone signal, and hiking a more advanced hiking trail put the women at a higher risk. Lisanne's asthma inhaler was not among the belongings recovered. Investigators determined that the belongings had 34 different sets of fingerprints, with 13 sets on the bag. The cell phones revealed something had happened to the girls around 4:30 p.m. because they had made their first attempt to call the emergency line. They first tried the International and then the Panama. However, there was no reception and they weren't able to connect. On April 1st, both phones attempted to contact the emergency line. April 2nd, they tried 4 times. Each day, they had more and more attempts to find a signal connection. And then something seemed to happen between the 5th and the 7th. It appeared that Lisanne's Samsung's battery had run out, and Chris's iPhone was the only phone to have battery power, and someone had attempted to access the phone 77 times while putting in the wrong code. The camera also had a weird series of photos taken in the dark. In my opinion, it seems as though they were trying to conserve their phone batteries, and it might have been that they were using the flash from the camera either as a light or perhaps a signal device. With the discovery of the backpack, they decided to search again. A few kilometers away from where the backpack was found, Chris's jean shorts were discovered. Several months after that, in the same area the backpack was found, a pelvic bone and a boot containing a foot were discovered. 33 more bone fragments were found after that, and using DNA testing, they were determined to belong to Chris and Lisanne. The Panama authorities have determined that Chris Cremers and Lisanne Froon got lost in the jungle, either one or both sustained an injury while trapped in the wilderness and passed of their injuries. This case is full of mysteries, and several things don't line up, like who had the bag for 10 weeks. The bag clearly hadn't spent 72 days outside in the jungle. The area that the bone fragments had been found had been searched several times prior. Why hadn't they been discovered earlier? Also, Panama officials didn't do any investigation on the DNA or the fingerprints found on the bag. We may never know the answers, and according to Panama, their case is closed, but Dutch authorities have maintained they feel the deaths are suspicious. Following their disappearance, the Panama authorities have made a greater effort to keep tourists safe, with signage, warning signs, maps, and designated with a guide only markers on trails. It is important when outdoors to always pack for the conditions, especially if you're going to be traveling on less populated trails. Stay safe while traveling and always pack with worst case scenarios in mind. Well, that's going to be it for this video. Thank you so much for tuning in and hanging out until the end. As always, please give this video a thumbs up if you like the content and subscribe for more if you haven't already. If you've done all that and you want to support me and the channel, I've linked a couple donation options in the description box. Also, a reminder that there is merch available. Please check it out, give me some feedback. I designed it myself and I'm having a lot of fun with it, adding new stuff all the time. Our subscriber shoutout is going to be Marvinette. Marvinette has been a long-time subscriber, and on the last video they said, "Cold cases are so sad. Let's hope that someone comes forward after all these years with some info, someone confesses or someone commits a similar crime. Peace to the families." If you would like to be the next featured shoutout, just be subscribed and comment your thoughts on this video. Thank you so much for your support. I appreciate it greatly. Bye.